Here we have my hard working Ford Ranger Wildtrak, which is off-road a fair bit on tracks and all sorts, and now has a broken spring. Properly broken spring. Although it actually broke when I was sat in it stationary in a car park, and there was this kind of doing sound, and the whole vehicle moved a little bit, and that was the spring breaking. Very strange. I've just been over some speed bumps, but it actually broke when stationary. So replacing this, obviously coil springs in ordinary cars can be pretty easy to do. Typically a Ford and more complicated cars it's not so easy. So I've got hold of the entire assembly, the spring and shock absorber assembly second hand. That's quite a decent one. You've got to pick and choose when second hand because a lot of them are pretty rusty. So I've got one. Now in theory, to replace all this you have to take off everything off the outside end. So you have to undo a load of ball joints, top and bottom, underneath. You have to undo all these pipes, take all this off, take the whole hub off, get into the bearings and everything. So big job, but there appears to be an easier way which we're going to try. I like an easier way. So we have to do it the easy way. You can undo this bolt here, and this bolt here at the inside ends of the wishbone, and then carefully lower the wishbone sufficiently to be able to get out the bottom end. So there's a bolt here to undo as well, the bottom end of that, and sufficiently to get clearance to get the top end out. And then it's a simple matter of putting the new one in. So what I've done is I've been waiting for the rain to stop, and today's looking good. I've done a load of oil on these nuts, although I must say I'm not really liking the look of that one. So in theory 6 bolts, 5-minute job. More like all day probably. I doubt I'll get it done today anyway because I've got lots of other things to do, but we'll make a start, see how we get on. Alright, so 21mm socket. If this one doesn't come out, we're not going to get anywhere with this job. Well, so far so good. It's got a captive washer thing on the outside that's now just turning. I'll need to get a socket on the other end of it. So get the spanner on the other end. There. Now, clearly I'm not going to take that all the way out yet because I've got the other ones to do and get the tension off it. But that's going to come out, which is good news. So now it's a matter of getting these wishbone bolts out. Now, it's worth pointing out that at the front, on each of them, it seems to be an eccentric washer, so that way to set suspension angles. So I've marked them carefully with marker pen, and then these are tight and not easy to get at, but there we are. coming off. And before I take these bolts out, I'm going to put a jack under the wishbone itself. Anyway, they're coming out nice and easy. Good. Alright, so before I take the wishbone bolts out, put a axle stand under here to act as a fulcrum, and then this jack's going in under here. So there's a little cut out in the bottom there. Just catch that in there. So that is going to support. That's going to support the wishbone. I'll just gently take some weight on it, and then I'll get these bolts out. So it's that one there and the one on the other side. Alright, so it's coming out. Definitely got these eccentric washers. I've knocked it through a bit with a soft hammer, and I'm just going to wind it out gently. It's coming loose now. Straight out, easy. So that's the bolt there with the eccentric washer on it and a mark that I've put on it. One done. Now see if we can ease the second one out. Oh, coming easy. Just keeping the nut on to protect the threads. This bit of shielding here is in the way, but I think I might be able to just squeeze that up in there, hopefully. Otherwise I'll have to unbolt it and move it a bit. So the idea now, with those two bolts out, is to lower this jack away a little and allow the wishbone to drop a bit in the back. It's coming out. Lower it a bit more. So this can come free. It's definitely lifted a bit. Come down a bit more. So that's definitely going to come out. It's not hurting anything here. Right, so now we're free here. This is vaguely supported on that axle stand. So now, with that free in here, this is nearly out. I just have to undo these three bolts on the top. We should be able to drop the whole assembly out and swap the new one in. Alright, these three nuts came off easy. So just that one's in slack there. And then that's just going to come out. Oh yeah, how easy was that? Alright, let's have another little look at this. Just while it's in bits. So the whole wishbone isn't actually very heavy, and it doesn't even need the jack to support it. This is taking the weight here, and just acting as fulcrum, and so it's come out of there, easily out of there. That's the bottom of the shock absorber, goes in there, and then up here you've got the underside of the turret, the top of the turret. Now the way that I believe you're meant to take it all apart is to basically strip everything off the front here. So undo all these ball joints, take all of this lot off, ABS cable, brake pipe, or take the caliper off, even right down to the CV joint and the hub. So all of that lot has to come off if you're taking off the front side. So I don't understand why you would really, but anyway, so we'll just get ready to put the new one in. Here we are then, old one and new one. Just get this one ready to put in. I like my thread locker. See if you can get it to come out. So that's non-permanent, but it's always a good thing. Alright, so with the same jack underneath the wishbone, just jack up a bit. Okay, at the same time I'm watching for this shock absorber bolt to go in. At least to start. That's him. That's going to go in there. Now, where's my bolt cord? There it is. That's in here. In there. So to get the last bolt in, I need a wee bit of tension on the wishbone, just pulling it across the way. So I've just put a ratchet strap across underneath from one wishbone to the other, and that'll hold it. And then I'm going to jack up around here just to push that up, and I'll get that bolt through. Before that, I'm just going to tighten up this one a wee bit, but just to get it snug. I can get a span on it. Right, that'll do that. Do a wee bit more tension on the strap. That's it. And that up a wee bit. Now I can see the hole perfectly. See? Look at it. Brilliant. There we are. Don't know what all the fuss is about. So I suppose the reason possibly why this is not the normal way, the book way of doing this, a spring replacement, might be that you're changing, so you're having to set the suspension angles, which I don't see. So yeah, it's all about the geometry of the steering and so on, but I don't see why. So long as you mark everything, see how that moves in and out as you turn it with the eccentric washer. I don't see why, if you mark everything carefully, you can't get it back to where it was at the start. Now, so I'm putting these on loosely. I've got the eccentric washer on that side as well, so all the parts are back on. Putting this on loosely because what I'm going to do, it's very important this, is reset the, just change my jacking point to the hub so that the suspension settles into its normal position, because it's important not to do up rubber bushes like this tight until you're in your normal position. Anybody that's had a series Land Rover will know to their cost that you have to get everything settled, otherwise your bushes just eat themselves because there's constant twisting tension on them. So I'm going to stop, I'm going to jack up underneath here, remove that one, while keeping my while still retaining an axle stand for safety, and then finally we'll torque up all the bolts, and that'll be the job done. Alright, so I've torqued up the top bolts on the shock absorber, on the spring assembly, and the bottom bolt. I've done the front of the wishbone. I set the angle on the front of the wishbone according to the marks, and I'm just going to tighten this one up. I've already set the angle. I've just got a spanner there just so I see that it's not going to move, and I'll double check it. Yeah, it's close, so I'll just tweak it a little. That's the angle tweaked, just a little bit, just to get my marks spot on. If you don't put marks on it, you've had it. If you want to, by all means go and get the suspension angles checked afterwards. But it's back exactly how it was, so we should be fine. I've got thread locker on here, and I'm doing them up to the same kind of torque as they were when I undid them. That's it. I'll just double check the angle. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so to summarise, had a broken spring, I bought a new one, well a replacement assembly in good condition, £50. That's the only money I've spent on this, and to get it out, rather than disassembling all of this, all of that, all of this, that, getting the caliper off, the whole lot off, all these, the wiring, the pipe, CV joint, which takes hours apparently, and involves an awful lot of wedging and general sweating and swearing. All I did was loosen off the bottom bolt, loosen off the top bolts here, and then remove these two wishbone bolts, that one there and that one there. Okay, and carefully marking them in advance. If you don't do that, you're in trouble. Marking them so that we can set the suspension angles back to what they were originally. Then I thought I was going to have to take a load of weight with jacks and things, but actually you don't really need to support this here underneath, or barely. And certainly working with this, it's only It's only fairly lightweight when you're pulling it up and down. A jack's handy to just hold it in the right place. Then getting it back together, got it so it drops, that rear wishbone drops down, get this in place with the plenty of space, get that loosely bolted in, and then one of the bolts, I did that one first in. This needed pulling that way a little bit, which I used a ratchet strap for, very easy, and then just jacked it up into position so that the bolt would slip in. No sweat or swearing involved. And I like to use thread locker, so there's thread locker on all the nuts. I've double checked, so the bottom one's torqued up, that one's torqued up, and that one, and that one. So we're all done, ready to put the wheel back on. Road test, back in action.